When we compare Christianity with Buddhism, the first thing to remember is that we're talking about two very different things. And it's really confusing when you try to treat both of them under the name of religion. When we compare Christianity with Buddhism, the first thing to remember is that we're talking about two very different things. And it's really confusing when you try to treat both of them under the name of religion. Of course, there are many books about comparative religions. But somehow, when you see put together under the same class things which are so different as Christianity on the one hand or Buddhism on the other, it gives me at any rate the same kind of shock I would get as if I were reading a book about geology and suddenly came upon a chapter on birds. And I think the lack of understanding that the functions, the aims of these two traditions are so different. If we could understand this clearly, it would make for a great deal less recrimination between people who like to say, well, my religion's better than yours. You see, the word religion is a very vague word, and it's used for so many different things. And if we will agree to use the word religion for Christianity and for things like Christianity, such as Judaism or Islam, then we would have to find another word altogether for Buddhism, because otherwise the word religion would mean so many different things as to mean nothing. Now, strictly, the word religion comes from a Latin verb meaning to bind back. And thus, the essence of a religion is a rule of life. If you use the word religion in its very, very strict sense, and you say of someone that he's gone into religion, this doesn't mean that he suddenly got converted. It means that he joined a religious order, that is to say, became a monk or a nun. And that is one, in other words, who submits himself to a rule or law of life. On the other hand, Buddhism is not a submission to a rule. And I have called Buddhism a way of liberation instead of a religion. And we can see the difference most effectively if we look at Buddhism and Christianity with regard to their different social functions. A religion like Christianity serves the social function of cementing a community together, giving that community its laws, its principles of ethics, and its common objectives. The function of Buddhism, on the other hand, as a way of liberation, is, as it were, to provide a cure for the inevitable ill effects of making the conventions of a community too strong, making the bonds of a community too strong. We all realize nowadays that it's very unhealthy for a society to be too conformist, to rule out all kinds of eccentricity, individuality, and independent thought. At the same time, it would be equally unhealthy to go to the other extreme and have everybody acting, talking, and thinking at cross purposes for the difference between Christianity and Buddhism. On the one hand, Christianity is vitally concerned with the transformation of the world. It is fundamentally a revolutionary doctrine, and also a historical doctrine. That is to say, when you consider what Christian doctrines are, they are really the telling of a story. The doctrine can be summed up so briefly by saying that in the beginning there was God who created the world, but that through the evil one and through the fall of man, the world fell away from the perfection in which he made it. To restore it to that perfection, God the Son himself entered into the world and became man in the historical Jesus of Nazareth, and took upon himself all the tragedy, all the evil, and all the suffering of the world in the act of being crucified. And in doing this, he, as it were, united the divine nature and the divine power with death itself in such a way as to transform death. He rose from the dead and founded a church. Note this, he founded a community. And this community has as its purpose, as it were, the bringing together of the whole universe back to the sovereignty of God. So it is a historical religion, looking for its fulfillment in the course of time. But in the end, its objective is to put God, or to acknowledge God rather, not to put him, as ruler of the universe. For it is fundamental to the whole conception of Christianity that God is the ruler. And here one sees the figure of God the Son, the eternal Word, in the act of creating the world. Notice how he is measuring it out with his compasses, creating it, as it were, as an artifact. And so the goal of Christianity is the kingdom of God. And in the Buddhist conception of the universe, there is no ruler, there is no king, but the universe is self-ruling. It goes by itself, it orders itself. And Buddhism does not look forward to a transformation of the world in time. Yes, it does look forward to a transformation of the world, but not at the end of time, but now, through the overcoming of our self-centered point of view. To see the world in a new way by altering oneself rather than changing the world. So that, as the old Zen master Hakuin said, when we get this point of view, this earth is the lotus land of purity, and this body is the body of Buddha.